are these people?
We'll get to that. You know, as this is happening, meanwhile, in the Legion of Doom, you know, the International Federation of Teachers. Collin, you're a teacher. Have you heard of this organization at all?
It's actually Illinois Federation.
Illinois, is it?
Yeah,
I thought it was
it's
international.
affiliated with the AFT, the American Federation.
American,
Yeah.
right? Who put on this event, essentially?
So basically, this is like the National Union for Teachers, essentially.
Gotcha.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
you know, and we have shut down Amazon, Chris Smalls, who's here, and he's giving a speech here. Did you know who else showed up to this? There's quite a few people.
I do, because I sent you the pictures. So.
Yes. So we'll get to a few of those. None other than Sneaky Snake Senator Warren. You know, who said thank you to every educator who is here. You deserve to teach in schools with adequate safety measures, resources, a fair wage, to be empowered and trusted to teach the truth in the richest nation on earth. Teachers deserve better. Lovely words from Senator Warren. Wish there was action. Right. So guess who else showed up? None other than the FLOTUS herself. A doctor. She's a doctor. Jill Biden. It's weird that her name's fuck it. It's like Joe and Jill. It just shouldn't be the same. Like too similar, you know? But she said, we believe there is something profoundly optimistic about education. To do this service in itself is an act of hope, and we need that hope more than ever. There are more. This is the AFL-CIO president, Liz Schuler, right? There are more than 12 million of us. Think about what we could do if we harnessed all that power. This is Senator Marty Walsh, or Secretary Marty Walsh, right? Yeah.
Former Boston mayor.
Right.
My mayors.
With the president of the Illinois Federation of Teachers. So what's up, Yipper? Yipper made it in chat. Go starts here. Nice to see the fam show up. So here's Senator Markey, right? We need to protect second graders, not the Second Amendment. Yes, thank you, Senator Markey. He's where? Boston, or the other guy's Boston, right?
Massachusetts. Okay. Yep.
So this is also happening at the same time, right? The New York Magazine is putting out this expose on Christian Smalls himself, giving him his own little Rolling Stones cover here. It's nice, you know. And they did a kind of a whole little story about it. So Chris Smalls became the new face of labor when he spearheaded a unionization drive at an Amazon packing facility in Staten Island. Now he is trying to replicate that success across the country. You know, this was July 18th, if anyone wanted to know the date. And when were these? The 15th, right? So this happened after. So they continue. Smalls formed the Amazon Labor Union in an audacious attempt to reform the second largest private employer in America. He's since been celebrated by everyone from President Biden to Jesse Jackson as the prime author and strategist of what the New York Times called one of the biggest victories for organized labor in a generation. Now, Collin, when you see those names, do you think progress is happening? Because I sure don't.
No, absolutely not. And, you know, I just feel like that. I mean, I kind of take personally as a teacher, but I take it more personally because I think as a teacher, you know, we've just been getting a lot of lip service more so during the pandemic and since, just as far as how we really appreciate teachers, how we really need our teachers. Meanwhile, teachers are leaving the field in a faster clip than they ever have. And so really, it's not necessarily the time to, with the niceties in terms of like, you're doing a good job, thank you for your service and all that kind of stuff. We understand you don't get paid well and all that kind of stuff. So great, you know that. So what are you going to do to encourage teachers to stay in the profession? You know, and this is kind of where I've had my issues with Dr. Jill Biden for the longest, being that she is a teacher herself. I feel like, and people are like, oh, well, she's currently teaching, I think at Virginia Community College, so she doesn't necessarily have as much time as previous first ladies to have like something that they can like, a project that they can work on during the tenure of the president. Fine, I can totally get that. But as a teacher, I would think that, especially knowing the reality of what teachers are going through right now and how many teachers are burnt out and wanting to leave the profession, I feel that she could be speaking more about that as far as, you know, as First Lady, this is what I'm proposing that our politicians do to help teachers, you know, stay in the field. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe canceling, you know, student loans for teachers, maybe, you know, working towards giving them higher raises, maybe, you know, giving them more supports, especially in low income areas, you know, where they're able to teach and not have to worry about getting like extra supplies for students. I don't know, like, even if at minimum you say something to that effect and not necessarily mean it, I think for most people, it would still wouldn't be good enough for me. But I think for most people, that will kind of give the illusion of, oh, this person really cares, you know, and maybe it could be worthwhile staying in the profession. But having all this lip service in terms of, oh, great job, teachers, we need you, thank you so much, and then nothing's happening.
Yeah.
You know, like I think it's in Florida. I think I read this to you last night, where I think in Florida, I think there's like, I have to check the
yeah, it was like 9,000, like, I think, yeah, crazy
close
like
to like
that, right?
10,000 like teacher vacancies that are still open, you know, in the entire state right now, looking for those positions to be filled by, I guess, next month, since I guess you guys go back in August.
Yeah, I think.
So, you know, so what's going to happen to those teachers who are going to be in higher than normal classrooms? Probably like some teachers may have to teach a subject that they're not certified to teach.
Right.
You know, still in the midst of COVID, you know. So I don't know. It just feels like, again, just a lot of pandering and kind of lip service, which I think from many teachers, that might be enough, at least just as far as the words of the appreciation. But I'm also sure that many of them would also prefer the action too. And I haven't heard any of that, you know, like in years, but I think more especially now in this.
So it continues a little bit. So the ALU is part of a burgeoning movement led by young workers instead of professional activists, and without support from traditional unions whose bureaucratic professionalism and non-confrontational tactics are considered by some stale and ineffective. Who's the other ones you talking to, New York Mag? But this is Indie News replying, Indie Left News, whom the editors of New York Magazine and its owners, to be perfectly fair, would love to see co-opted and disappear. So you'll give it a pat on the head and never cover the union busting until it's all over and the workers are screwed. Virtue signaling woke libs who side with management. So, yeah, I mean, of course. I love how it's like, who's bureaucratic? Yeah, they're talking about the AFL-CIO here, like anyone connected with that, pretty much, you know, and their professionalism and non-confrontational tactics. So Smalls calls this the new school labor movement, and he's its most visible practitioner. Now his task is to prove that his union could replicate its first win. He dreams of organizing every U.S. Amazon facility. That's hundreds of thousands of workers. And you will question and undermine him at every turn, smiling and saying, "Aw shucks, too bad," because it doesn't affect you and you really don't give a F. Or you'd have covered this long before now. the damn union vote was 3.5 months ago. Where the fuck have you clowns been? So yeah, I mean, little late to the party, New York Mag, for sure. But so as the AL, this is the one I wanted to kind of like focus on because I think it does showcase what elites think about this tactic and how they think it's working, right? So as the ALU's leader, it is Small's job to use his charm and clout to raise funds, corral sympathetic politicians, attract new members, and put pressure on Amazon to capitulate to the union's demands, which none of that really does, other than maybe sympathetic politician corralling, you know, and new member attracting. But I don't think it does either of those if it looks like you're not actually for the people anyway. So that you're just using your charm and clout, you know, to raise funds.
Right.
That's their first part of the sentence is, you know.
Right.
So
it's what I've said regarding him, same
yes.
thing regarding Matthew Ho.
Right.
Like, who is the organization that's backing you up?
Yes.
Like, so with Chris Smalls, yeah, in theory, the LEU is backing him up, but more so the workers. Like, where are they in all of this? You know, we reported on, I think maybe now over a month ago now, how there was a similar story where, like, I forgot his name now, but like he was trying to organize and was fired. Like, has Chris, I believe in that when we read it, that Chris Smalls, I think, reached out to him or whatever. I think, you know, I want to be fair in this, but where is that going as far as this worker, you know? So, but I think all I'm seeing is Chris Smalls like doing events like these, cheesing it up, taking pictures of celebrities and whatever else. And that may be okay. And like people, and I know people have been coming at us hard as being like, well, he needs to have the visibility and like that's necessary.
Right. Like,
sure, he needs the visibility, but he needs to be telling off these people in their face.
Yes.
You know, not hobnobbing with them for favors to raise money for ultimately him.
Well, and he doesn't realize that like rubbing elbows, some of that elbow gets on you, you know?
Right.
Like,
and so
and like they continue.
If you ever were to have an interview with him, like that's something I will ask is like,
yeah,
where are the workers' voices in all of this?
Well, and why is he the only voice of the ALU?
Right.
There were multiple members who got that win at JFK 8. It wasn't just Smalls. It would have been taken a team effort. Where are they? Why aren't they going on shows and going places to talk about this? Why is no one speaking to them? And is it hopefully it's because they're actually busy. Hopefully.
Right.
But like, you know, New York Mag continues with like by making himself as well known as possible. In other words, Small hopes to expand the size and power of his union. Those two aren't it's causation and correlation don't compute here. Like, in my opinion, like making yourself as well known as possible doesn't necessarily expand your size and expands the union's power. Like, if anything, it puts a target on you, and they just had to dismiss you. And the fact that where are you going? Who are you talking to? Jill Biden, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, AOC. You've now made good job. You've now made the union a left-wing ideal.
Right.
There goes all those like people who were on the fence. If you were against those like same like establishment parties, if you were openly against Biden and his anti-union tactics, or you know that AOC didn't show up and didn't deserve that win like you began to, you were doing the right thing to start off with. Like, you know, those politicians, you don't need to give them a mic. It's your mic. Like, anyway.
It's frustrating because I think we've seen this for the last few months, since April, like where this is heading, and it's just kind of, you know, it's following up on what we've been saying this whole time. It's just the idea of you know, Chris Smalls, you know, becoming the celebrity, but then there's no substance to what he's doing anymore.
Right.
And then like, and God forbid if like the unionization plans at JFK 8 fall through,
Right.
what's that going to do for him?
Right. I mean, they're treating you like the Justin Bieber of unions. You show up just to be a pretty face for them.
Right.
Like, they're using you, and you feel like you're using them. That's not how the game is played. Like, you know, you're going to the American Federation of Teachers while they fucking do their, like, the standard national officers get reelected, and they pass resolutions that, like, don't really, we'll get to it. You
know what? It's kind of funny that Chris Smalls went to this, because many districts, you know, depending on their union bylaws or whatever, depending on the state, are not allowed to organize. They're not allowed to protest.
Yeah.
You know, like in DC, I'm not able, you know, to protest.
Right.
You know, like that. Like, I think it's kind of ironic that you're going to this, and Chris Smalls is essentially saying, you know, you need to organize and all this kind of stuff, which hypothetically is a good thing. And I think as teachers should be happening.
Right.
But many teachers can't do that.
And the teachers union has been notoriously bad at actually giving teachers what they actually need. Like, you know, and that's been that way since my mother was a teacher. Like, they barely will fight for better wages ever. Like, they're constantly on the side of education boards. Like, anyway, this was in Boston. So the 1.7 million member American Federation of Teachers wrapped its 87th biannual convention today, with union delegates voting overwhelmingly to re-elect President Randy Weingarten, Secretary of Treasury Frederick Ingram, and Executive Vice President Evelyn DeJesus. Over 4 packed days, 3,000 delegates debated and passed resolutions on a range of issues, from addressing the promise of public education to advocating for living wages, to combating the effects of climate change, to tackling the student debt crisis. They heard from high-profile guests and speakers, including Dr. Jill Biden, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Secretary of Labor Marty Walsh, National PTA President Nathan Monell, the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III of Chicago's Trinity United Church of Christ, League of United Latin American Citizens CEO Cindy Benavides, and Trade Union of Education and Science Workers of Ukraine, Vice President Olga Shabaniak. Ukrainian names are always hard to pronounce. So the union launched a member poll, the first report of its teacher and school staff shortage task force, in a landmark campaign, What Kids and Communities Need. AFT President Randy Weingarten said our convention theme was reclaiming our future. It had a theme. It's like prom. It was about lifting up our members for their incredible work, making sure they felt seen and heard, and ensuring they left Boston with the tools to put their values into action and help make their kids' patients and community lives better every single day. Our delegates and communities put in the work on the issues keeping families up at night, from climate change to accessible health care, to the crushing crisis of student debt, to the terrifying safety issues plaguing too many workplaces. This year was an important reminder of the AFD's foundations in democracy and our commitment to union work, to stand up and be counted, to live our convictions, and to engage and not withdraw. So, Weingarten, who taught social studies and civics at Clara Boughton High School in Brooklyn, New York, was reelected to an 8th term. I don't really care about much of this, so I probably should just skim through most of it. I did want to look at... So, yes, delegates passed a range of resolutions, including for community schools, helping students thrive in our schools and communities, resolving that the AFT will advocate for funding at the federal level dedicated specifically for creating additional community schools, and supporting the hiring of community school directors, coordinators to lead the critical work of aligning community services with family and student needs. Building a better bridge between learning and work through CTE, internships, and apprenticeships. Resolving to embrace career and technical education as a system of career advising, career-corrected learning, followed by an employer-facilitated transition to work and/or further education tied to a career. Yeah, free internships. Specifically for schools, probably.
Yeah.
So, a special order of business to adopt the AFT's Teacher and School Staff Shortage Task Force report, which is a culmination of in-depth member surveys, multiple listening sessions, numerous virtual and in-person task force meetings, input from top researchers, the hard work of the AFT elected leaders and staff, and the guidance of AFT national officers. Did it say anything about like what that actually to adopt the teacher and school staff shortage task force report? What does that even mean?
So basically, I think they're essentially going to study, like, as I mentioned earlier, just teachers leaving and how
Gotcha.
that's affecting schools, basically.
Makes sense. Addressing staffing shortages in the healthcare workforce. Oh, I didn't even realize. So, pledging the AFT develop and implement a strategy with its national and state leaders for state laws that mandate staffing ratios or safe patient limits in at least 5 states by 2025, and to support the work of its affiliates to address workplace violence and legislation through collective bargaining and other state and local work of healthcare affiliates. School meals for all. Resolving to advocate for and support federal and state legislative actions that ensure all students, regardless of income, have unimpeded access to school meals.
Which, by the way, that waiver, and I think I reported about that 2 months ago.
Yes.
That's going to expire by summer's end.
Quickly. Yeah.
So I know Ilhan Omar tweeted out on that maybe like last month, I believe, within the month. But, you know, that waiver is going to expire, you know,
Right.
by the end of next month. And so it's going to go back to the bureaucracy of, you know, free lunch, reduced lunch, you know, you got to pay for full, you know, which considering inflation right now, that's going to be a bad thing for schools.
Yeah. So,
and students, ultimately.
So, fight for higher education, which resolves, among other goals, to create a higher education is affordable and accessible to all students. Cancel the student debt of all borrowers who are suffering because of the unjust way we finance higher education, and protect and expand the financial education and social supports that ensure a diverse range of students can access a college education and succeed. Living wage for all FT members. It doesn't say. I wish it said what they thought that was. Calling for the Department of Education to study adjunct contingent pay and benefit equity, which is like healthcare and dental and stuff, right? Adjunct contingent faculty and the severe inequalities of pay and overall benefits they endure. Okay, gotcha. For like janitorial staff and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So this is the one that got me, Collin. Solidarity with Ukraine. Why does the American Federation of Teachers need to like support Ukraine? Does that make any sense
if
to
they're
you?
going to do that, why not other countries?
Sure. Right.
Why not Somalia?
Yes. Why not?
Yemen?
Right.
You know, like,
thank you.
Why Ukraine? Well, we know why Ukraine.
What about the teachers of Palestine, Collin? What about them? God forbid. Anyway, fulfilling the promise of education, opportunity, and equity. AFT and its affiliates will support practices to create safe and affirming environments for educators and students. Hopefully ones that, I don't know, don't have like mass murders in them probably would be a good start. And reproduction rights and the protection of women. Defends the rights and members of our members and all women, girls, and others who can become pregnant. Rejects forced birth and calls for the Senate and state lawmakers and voters to codify the right to choose abortion established by Roe v. Wade into federal and state law. Interesting, the AFT making a statement on that too. You know, so
I mean,
like, I feel you.
A lot of these resolutions, I think pretty much most of them.
Yeah.
Actually, there's more, so go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's just like school community violence, divest from fossil fuels, and reinvest in workers. Like, this is all like, you know, mainly.
I mean, it's just
like
it's
frivolous.
All nice. It's all nice, but ultimately it's just fluff.
Yeah.
And and so like I don't think it's just a nice thing to say that they're going to work on, but whether or not that's going to change anything or drastically change the climate of how teachers feel right now in schools, no.
Yeah. So this is going to be a short one for people, but